Does someone want to act like a cat? Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Paige, and in my last video I talked a lot about how I'm obsessed with mythology and folklore. So then I figured, why not give you my recommendations for my favourite books that feature folklore and mythology. So my first series for these recommendations are going to be the Runemarks series. I have the second book in the series, Runelight, here. It's signed. And this series is basically a retelling of Norse mythology, and it's set in a post-apocalyptic world, and this girl has this rune mark on her hand which shows that she has magic, and it's proof that magic still exists, and there's like goblins and all sorts of fun stuff. It's definitely a high fantasy, but it definitely also uses lots of elements of Norse mythology, which is really interesting. So here we go. The next series that I have yet to finish, and I really need to because I love this series, and that is Half-Blood by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is definitely more of a romance than a fantasy, but it does follow demigods in a type of school setting, and there's a really steamy makeout scene in this. I was obsessed with this when I was like an early teenager, and I really enjoyed this. I don't remember much about it. I'm definitely due for a reread, and I definitely need to finish it. I think this year is going to be a year of finishing series that I started when I was a teen. Oh god, I'm not a teen anymore. So the next series I have finished, although I'm sad I finished because I expected there to be more and there's not, and again it's much more of a romance, and that is Finding Sky by Stirling. So this also follows like Greek demigods, except it's when they find their soulmate, kind of like a werewolf impressions type thing. They kind of just see these girls and they know them, and it follows these 12 brothers, and each book is kind of follows a different brother finding his mate. This one is definitely my favourite. It's either this one or Stealing Phoenix is my favourite. There's like 12 brothers and only 3 books. It's a bit sad, but then would we really want to read 12 of them? I don't know, but I would definitely like to see more in this series. This is definitely heavy on the romance. It's nice and short. It's not, I'm not going to stand here and say it's the best book ever written, but it's cheesy and it's fun and I like it. Now this next series is a trilogy, and it is my favourite Greek mythology trilogy of all time, and that is Starcrossed by Josephine and Angelini. This might be one of my favourite series of all time. Very heavy on the romance, but it's so good. So the premise of this book, the different descendants from the gods are all in different houses, and when these houses meet, they fight, they hate each other, they hear the furies in their mind, and it just makes them want to kill each other. And so for a while they believe that there's only one house in existence, and then this group of demigods goes to school, and our main character Helen just suddenly starts to attack them, and they're all really confused because they didn't believe there were any other houses left. And that's all I'm going to tell you because it's just so good. If you're going to read anything mythology based, read this. It is the best. So the next book I'm going to talk about is Gods Behaving Badly by Phillips. This follows the story of the Greek gods living together in a 21st century London townhouse, and they all have like modern day jobs that kind of fit their godly descriptions, and it's just really funny and light-hearted. There's not much more to say about it other than it's just really good. And it's different from reading a fantasy with Greek mythology because I feel like most of these books are fantasies or romances, and this is just a little bit different. My next recommendation is 1,000 Ships by Natalie Haynes. This is an interesting one because it tells the story of the Battle of Troy, which is kind of the battle that most people tend to pick when they're writing a mythological retelling. However, this one is interesting and unique in the fact that it's told entirely from women's perspective. So it's multi-perspective and only from women, which is very unique and not something that I've ever read before. Most of these stories are from male perspectives, and I think it adds something to the understanding of the war and how it was experienced, and it was over a woman, so it's kind of surprising that we haven't heard a woman's description before, and now we have. So now I've already talked about Circe on my channel. It is in my booktube books that I hated video. You can go watch that if you want to hear my in-depth opinions on this, but I can't really talk about myth retellings without mentioning Madeleine Miller. Now, I've heard that her Song of Achilles is much better and will probably be more my speed, so I will still be checking that out. I will read anything mythology based, even if I didn't like this. That I reckon I will like that one. Definitely give this book a try because I know some people really like it. It just wasn't for me, and I wouldn't say go into it expecting like a story. This is more just all of the myths involving Circe being put together. There's not like a plot that runs through it, if you understand what I'm saying. Moving on to the non-fiction, as I said, I read a lot of non-fiction. A, because I find it really interesting. B, I study archaeology, so it's kind of just in my degree description. So the first book that I'm going to tell you about is Ancient Worlds by Michael Scott. This is just a really easy summary of the different ancient worlds, and it covers East and West alike, and it's just a very nice introduction if you're new to mythology and ancient history. I really recommend this. It's got pictures of art history and archaeology in it too, so you can kind of see what you're reading about, which I think is always helpful in a non-fiction. Next book I'm going to show is a huge recommendation. I just read it recently, I flew through it, it was so ridiculously interesting, and that is Amazons by Mann. So this basically traces the Amazon women throughout ancient history. The Amazons as we know them in Wonder Woman do not, as far as we know, exist, but it's a fact that the Greeks did encounter female warriors that they considered to be Amazons, you know. The myth came from somewhere, and this traces that throughout history, not just in the Greek period. I will say there are some bits that I didn't think quite fit. It kind of just felt like including interesting female facts for the sake of it, but it's still interesting to read. I just thought some of it didn't quite belong in this book. But definitely really interesting. The ancient stuff was by far my favourite, but that makes sense as an archaeology student, so highly recommend if you're looking for a non-fiction, more niche ancient history type read. Okay, so this is a bit of a weird choice, but I bought this because I saw it on Book Depository and I kind of had to have it. So this is A Classical Education by Caroline Taggart. I bought this because I wanted a classical education and it's in the title. This has like introductions to Latin, and it has like a little encyclopedia of the different gods and what they do and stuff like that. It's more of a companion to if you're reading something with mythology and you need something to help you out. I found this really helpful. I specifically liked the bits with the ancient languages because languages are just really interesting and I wish I could pick them up quicker. I would also like to mention Stephen Fry's Mythos. I cannot give a full recommendation on this book because I haven't finished it yet. I'm listening to the audiobook currently and I highly recommend the audiobook. Stephen Fry himself narrates it and he does a really good job. He kind of puts his own thoughts into it. You can really clearly tell when he's speaking about a particular god or story that he's really interested in. He provides his own jokes. You get that classic Stephen Fry etymology. There's a lot of etymology in that book. I like etymology. I find that really interesting to know where words come from. The book is especially good for showing the smaller gods and the titans. I think most Greek myth stories or retellings just focus on the Olympian gods themselves. This book doesn't. This book definitely shows how they all link and how some jobs you have titan gods for them and Greek gods, because I was confused about the whole Apollo Helios thing, but this book kind of sums that up. And it's just really interesting and definitely a far more detailed version of Greek mythology than any of these books. Stephen Fry in general has a lot of myth books out there, so just check them all out because I reckon they would all be great. And so those are my Greek myth recommendations, both fiction and non-fiction. I purposely didn't mention Rick Riordan's books because everybody knows about them. I've talked about them before on this channel too, but if you haven't heard of them, just Google Rick Riordan and you will find everything that you could possibly be looking for. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know any other Greek type myth books that you think I should read. I'd be really interested to know. Someone just turned the shower on. That's that noise. Can't do much about it. And on that note, I will see you in my next video. Bye!